Hi, I'm Anna, and welcome to the final D2 Audible cheat sheet episode. If chapters 8 to 11 in the textbook were the thinking, chapters 12 to 14 are the doing. You've understood what you're selling, who you're selling it to, and what success is meant to look like. Now you're in the part of the process where marketing becomes real because a strategy isn't one clever idea. It's a set of decisions that have to hold together. And the textbook is very clear. If one element is weak, it weakens the entire marketing effort. Chapter 12 in the textbook is where the strategy gets built. It's framed through the marketing mix, which is simply the combination of factors that need to work together to achieve the objectives. The model used here is the 5 P's: product, price, people, place, promotion. Some frameworks omit people and talk about 4 P's, others add two more for services, but the WSET textbook stays within the five that matter most for wine. Product is the objective, service, or system being marketed. In wine, that means the liquid itself, yes, but also all the packaging and branding that surrounds it: the bottle, the label, the closure, the presentation, the name, the logo, the cues. Marketing needs to communicate what is distinctive about that product and why it'll satisfy the needs and wants of the target consumer. And a key idea here is that consumers often want more than wine. They want what the wine represents. They want the experience it brings, whether that is social status, belonging, authenticity, reward, celebration, or even something like investment value. Marketing has to bring that experience, make it legible, and the product has to consistently deliver it. The text also reminds us that the wine market is often described as saturated. There are already enough products competing for attention, and there are a few obvious gaps. That makes differentiation essential. A producer has to explain clearly how their wine is different from close competitors, whether that difference is higher quality, better value, organic credentials, vegan suitability, fair trade positioning, or any other attribute that matters to the target segment. Even label design becomes strategic here because different consumers respond to different cues. But those cues only work when they match what the wine truly delivers and what the consumer wants to believe about it. Price is the amount that the consumer pays, but the textbook pushes you to think beyond the shelf ticket. Price includes delivery charges, discounts, and the cost in time or effort the consumer is willing to invest in order to buy the wine. In an ideal world, pricing finds the balance between the producer's need for profit and the price that sufficient numbers of consumers will pay. But that balance is constrained by the wider forces that shape wine price, including supply and demand and the costs that accumulate through the supply chain. The textbook also highlights that companies use different pricing strategies, and one you're likely to reference in an exam answer is penetration pricing. This is where a new product is priced relatively low or launched with a promotion to undercut competition and win quick adoption. The expectation is that consumers will switch permanently. But there's a catch. Once consumers anchor their perception of value at that lower price, later attempts to raise price may fail because the wine feels less competitive. Price is also psychology. The textbook points to research showing that consumers are strongly influenced by price when making purchase decisions, and it includes the striking point that brain scan research suggests many people experience more pleasure from a wine they believe is expensive than from the same wine if they believe it's cheap. That matters particularly for consumers with lower wine knowledge, and especially when they're buying wine for someone they believe has greater knowledge. They will often spend more to reduce social risk. And the textbook also emphasizes psychological price points. Consumers may respond differently to something priced at 9.99 versus 10 because they anchor instantly on the first digit. That is why producers and retailers may adjust pricing to hit key thresholds. People can be interpreted in two ways, and both matter for wine. In one interpretation, people refer to the attitude and behaviors of the target consumer. This matters because every other part of the marketing mix has to be tailored to those behaviors. If your consumer is not active on social media, a heavy social campaign is wasted effort. In the other interpretation, people refers to the relationships between the company, its staff, its partners, and its customers, including customer service and internal capability. Wine producers need knowledgeable staff to sell their products, whether that is direct to consumer at a cellar door or business to distributors and retailers. The chapter stresses alignment too. Any partner or a producer works with, such as distributors or PR agencies, should share the producer's image and vision so that the message stays consistent through the supply chain. A practical example is staff training. A winemaker or sales rep might deliver a masterclass for distributor or retailer staff to communicate the brand story, the style, and the identity so that they can sell it with confidence and accuracy. Place is where the product is sold, and it also includes which distribution channels make sense. A producer needs to be present where the target market actually shops and drinks. High involvement consumers are more likely to buy from specialist independent retailers and premium supermarket chains, and the textbook notes that they are also increasingly attracted to deep discounters. They tend to drink in specialist wine bars and dine out in casual and fine dining establishments. Because high involvement consumers enjoy experimenting and expanding their repertoire, these outlets are ideal for wines from lesser known regions or varieties, and they can work even when supply is limited because volumes sold are naturally lower. Low involvement consumers tend to look for wines at lower prices with a simple aroma and flavor profile as long as there is a reliable minimum level of quality. They are more likely to buy in supermarkets and drink in general bars and non destination restaurants. The placement logic is clear. Wines aimed at low involvement consumers must be positioned in outlets where those consumers already shop and drink. Place also extends to market choice across countries. Consumer preferences vary from market to market, and it can be necessary to adjust style, sweetness, or alcohol levels to satisfy different tastes. Then there are structural and regulatory barriers, such as taxation, duties, and restrictions on distribution, including monopoly markets and the US three tier system. These can make markets less attractive or harder to enter profitably. The textbook introduces a useful wine intelligence model of market maturity that helps structure this decision making. Mature markets tend to have stable or declining volumes, but reliable trade structures and established wine culture. Emerging and new emerging markets may have greater growth potential, but they carry more risk and may lack clear routes to market. The exam skill is showing you that you can balance opportunity against risk rather than treating market choice as a simple expansion story. Promotion covers the methods used to promote the product, and the textbook makes a key point about segmentation. Because psychographic and behavioral segments contain people across different places and demographics, a single promotional channel is rarely enough to reach the whole segment. A campaign typically needs multiple elements. If marketing is happening across borders, legal constraints matter too, especially around alcohol advertising, which varies dramatically by country. Promotion is split into what happens at the point of sale and what happens away from it. At the point of sale, the most common activity is price promotion. These are used in many markets, although deep discounters rarely use them. They can be used to increase sales of existing products, build volume for a new product, attract new customers, or clear old stock and discontinued lines. The textbook outlines many promotion types, but the real exam value is understanding the risks. You can't judge success until after the promotion ends. If it works, sales will drop when the price returns to normal but remain higher than before the promotion started. If it doesn't work, consumers simply move to the next promoted product and there is no lasting lift. There's also the risk that repeated discounting resets consumer perception so the promotional price becomes seen as the correct price. That can damage brand image, which is why the champagne industry has been concerned about frequent promotions in British supermarkets. Multi buy discounts can carry less obvious image damage because the per unit discount is less visible, but they are controversial because they can encourage excessive consumption. And the textbook notes that they've been banned in some places such as Sweden and Scotland. The broader policy debate around limiting alcohol promotions and introducing minimum unit pricing sits behind this. And the textbook also introduces lower risk alternatives like link saves, where the discount applies to a product in another category, and delivery discounts such as free delivery over a threshold. It covers competitions too, not just as sales tools, but as a way to collect consumer contact details for future marketing, subject to data protection law. Limited edition packaging is another tool. In luxury contexts, elaborate presentation can reinforce scarcity and prestige and even appeal to investors. In most cases, limited edition packaging tends to be short term fun and doesn't necessarily drive long term sales. Consumer tastings are treated as highly effective because they reduce perceived risk, particularly for low involvement consumers who worry about wasting money on something they may not like. If they try it and like it, they're more likely to buy now and again later. If they don't like it, they may still buy something else while they're in the shop or venue. Staff incentives and staff training can also be promotional tools when there is personal interaction between staff and consumers, such as in specialist retail bars and fine dining. But the textbook adds an important compliance point. In some markets, such incentives may be illegal and treated as bribery or unfair competition. Away from the point of sale, the textbook moves into broader brand building. Advertising can be powerful and memorable, but expensive, especially on TV and in cinemas, and it is constrained by laws. Some countries ban alcohol advertising entirely, others impose strict controls, and others rely more on self regulation. Advertising often involves a mix of channels. TV and cinema can reach large audiences but cost the most. Product placement can be a lower cost option. Radio is cheaper but less memorable because it lacks images. Press advertising can work well for wine because it can tell more of the story than a short broadcast slot, and it can be targeted to the right leadership. Some producers also use advertorials, where respected writers are paid to write pieces about them, although this sits in a gray area of credibility and should be handled carefully. Billboards work when the message is simple and striking, though transport hubs allow for more detailed content because people have time to read. Digital advertising and online platforms allow global reach at relatively low cost, often paying only when the consumer click through. Social media changes the relationship from speaking to consumers to having a dialogue with them. It is especially important for younger consumers, but it needs balance. The textbook notes that if companies only promote themselves, they risk alienating followers. So, non promotional content matters too, including news, imagery, and increasingly video that the target market will enjoy, even if it isn't directly about wine. Choosing the right platform is critical because user behavior shifts over time, and peer reviews have become increasingly influential in purchase decisions, particularly among millennials who may trust these more than traditional critics. Social media also creates risk. Negative content can spread fast, and brands need active monitoring and thoughtful responses, as well as immediate removal of inappropriate posts. Websites are presented as essential to brand image. They allow storytelling, product information, pairing suggestions, events, and potentially an online shop. They can offer basic information for most consumers with more technical detail for high involvement consumers. But websites have to be attractive, easy to navigate, and reliable. User tolerance for slow or broken websites is low. Search engine optimization becomes important because users rarely go beyond the first page of search results. There's also the legal and ethical issue of underage access, and most alcohol sites use age gates, though these rely on honesty. Smartphone apps allow discovery, reviews, and seller tracking. Some businesses integrate with apps by sharing stock information so consumers can find where to buy wine, sometimes paying commission when an app drives a sale. Reviews and awards can significantly boost sales. Producers may target critics and send samples, though some critics dislike that approach. Competitions like Decanter World Wine Awards or the International Wine Challenge can provide medals that producers then use in promotional materials and as bottle stickers. The influence is strongest among less knowledgeable consumers, but it also matters to trade buyers, so the entry cost is often viewed as worthwhile. Wine tourism is framed as a major promotional channel, especially for newer producers or up and coming regions, because it creates engagement and loyalty. Many producers now offer experiences beyond a simple cellar door, including tasting rooms, tours, shops, restaurants, accommodation, harvest experiences, and even an event hire. But it can be expensive to build, and it can divert staff from core operations. So, not all producers encourage visitors. Regions can also build coordinated wine tourism with trails, cycle routes, and tourist attractions such as the Napa Valley Wine Train. High involvement tourists seek learning and contact with producers, while low involvement tourists may simply want a pleasant tasting as part of a wider trip. But both can become customers and advocates. Public relations is distinct from advertising. Advertising promotes products. PR aims to create the most favorable image of the business in the consumer's mind. PR activities include attending public events, appearing in media, issuing press releases, publishing newsletters, and using social media. Corporate responsibility policies can also support positive perception. And the textbook highlights brand ambassadors, sometimes employees chosen for knowledge and presentation skills, and sometimes celebrities believed to match the brand image. In some markets, key opinion leaders can be employed to produce content that spreads through large follower networks, especially where peer recommendation is highly valued. Sponsorship can build visibility through sport and culture, sometimes including exclusive serving rights at events. But it is often treated as advertising and subject to the same legal restrictions, and it can be controversial because it links alcohol to activities associated with health and well being. Events and festivals are another route, often organized by regions to bring producers together. They can attract high involvement consumers and a broader audience when combined with food and entertainment. But the economics must work. Producers pay to exhibit, devote staff, and pour stock they could otherwise sell. Stands must compete for attention, and producers need to offer something distinctive. Tastings also need careful management because some visitors treat festivals as an opportunity to drink excessively rather than taste. And some events combat this by using voucher systems. Free merchandise is positioned as a way to promote without lowering price. commonly used around holidays. It can include branded glasses, ice buckets, corkscrews, or gift packs, extending brand visibility, excuse me, beyond the moment of purchase. Across promotion, the textbook repeatedly returns to the logic of fit. A high volume, inexpensive brand needs awareness at scale. A low volume, super premium wine needs protection of image and precise targeting. Promotion choices are never generic. They are dictated by volume, price band, and the consumer you are trying to reach. Chapter 13 in the textbook then takes the strategy and makes it operational. Once the plan is drawn up, it is implemented, but marketing is dynamic. The strategy needs constant review to confirm it is working as intended. If it isn't, adjustments may be needed, either to the strategy itself or even to the objectives. In some cases, the decision may be to withdraw the product entirely if objectives are not realistically achievable. Measuring success can be basic, like tracking sales, profit, or website hits. It can also involve marketing research to understand consumer reactions, from direct feedback in focus groups through to more complex methods like eye tracking for websites and store layouts, and research into how likely communications are to be transmitted through social networks, described here as social networking potential. And finally, the last chapter 14 closes with the practical reality check. Not all companies market in the same way because not all companies have the same resources. Some large companies employ in house marketing teams, sometimes in multiple key markets, to stay close to consumers and spot trends. Smaller companies may outsource to PR agencies or advertising firms, which costs money but it is still cheaper than employing specialized staff. Some very small companies do marketing themselves, often as part of one person's role, which naturally limits activity. And many producers join associations and trade bodies, from consortia and generic national bodies to informal producer groupings. These organizations often exist partly to promote member wines, and even with membership fees, they can deliver exposure and shared expertise at a fraction of the cost of building marketing capacity alone. So, if you stitch chapters 12 to 14 into one exam ready thought, it's this: marketing strategy is not a slogan, it's a system. It begins with alignment across product, price, people, place, and promotion. It succeeds only if it is implemented with discipline, measured honestly, and adjusted as conditions change, and it is delivered through a marketing model that matches the resources and realities of the business, whether that is a global in-house team or a small producer leaning on collective promotion. I do hope this helps with your D2 wine business. I wish you all the best, and I'll see you at the next episode.